Welcome to a new video where I want to do a camera review on the Redmi Note 10 Pro. And can this entry-level mid-range device compete with flagship devices? It has at least a 108 megapixel flagship worthy camera sensor, and I want to check it out in this video if it is good for photos and videos, as well as the 8 megapixel ultra wide angle camera. So let's get started. We start this video off with the selfie camera on the Redmi Note 10 Pro and Full HD 30 frames per second, and I'm going downhill and let's see how good the stabilization is working on the Redmi Note 10 Pro. And I have my microphone attached. As you can see here, it's windy, so probably you can hear some wind noise. Let me just turn around because it's too much even for the wind muff for the little dead cat to handle. So this is the front-facing camera video of the Redmi Note 10 Pro, and yeah, tell me what you think about the stabilization and if audio quality is also good enough with my Ceremonic microphone, wired microphone, because you have a headphone jack where you can just plug in the microphone and then use that for recording. At least I hope the Xiaomi software is still able to do this. So let's try out the main camera sensor on the back. How good is stabilization and how good is the image and the blur, the background blur that you get? I think the sensor is a little bit bigger on the Redmi Note 10 Pro than on my Sony that I filmed the intro with. So 1/1.7 inch is the Sony one, and this one here, the I think it's GN1 from Samsung on the Redmi Note 10 Pro, is 1/1.5 inch, so it's a bigger sensor. It's basically the same size of sensor as in my Mate 30 Pro that also has, in the wide angle at least, a 1/1.5 inch sensor. But the difference is that this one is a much more narrower than the one on the Mate 30 Pro, and I think this sensor is working fine. If you have a selfie stick like I have here, it can work pretty good, and you don't need a smaller sized vlogging camera or something like this, because this camera sensor is that good. Also, dynamic range is good. The sun in the background, as you can see here, it should still expose just my face fine, and autofocus should also work just fine. I can show you my Sony Xperia 1 Mark II device and the stuff that I filmed on there. You can see it should also just simply focus on this, so focusing should also work pretty fine and good. And I think I will switch to the ultra wide 8 megapixels to see if there's a big difference in terms of quality and of course field of view. So now I'm on the ultra wide camera lens, the 8 megapixel camera lens, and this one is also pretty fine, pretty wide as well, so you can see a lot of things here around me. But I think dynamic range is a bit worse. The sun is in the background again. Let's try focusing. So I have my phone here. Is it focusing on this? Can I get closer to this? And how's the back? I'm not sure if it has focusing even. This might be one thing that, of course, I would expect on a mid-range device not to have. Only high-class premium devices have a ultra-wide angle camera that has the ability to focus as well. So having autofocus, not a fixed focus. Of course, focusing is there as well, hopefully. This is basically everything for this ultra-wide angle camera test. And of course, you have also the possibility to zoom in during video recording, I guess. At least this is what I will try out, and then I will take some photos and show you this as well. So let's get started. So let's try again the ultra wide angle camera sensor. We are going here to this little pond, and we will try to take a nice little snap, as well as having some zoom tests. So I have now the possibility from this ultra wide angle to zoom in, so I can zoom in slowly here to 1 times roughly, and I don't see it changing the camera, which is a bit odd. Maybe it's kicking in a little bit later. So let's try to get one of the birds there to see what are those birds. Can I zoom in? I can only zoom in 2 times, and I think it is cropping into the ultra wide angle lens. It's not really using the main camera sensor. Let's stop this and go to the main sensor. So now I'm on the main sensor. Let's see how much I can zoom in here. So here I can zoom in further, as you can see here, 6 times already. Can not zoom in anymore, and it gets pretty pixelated because it doesn't have a telephoto camera sensor, so it's only cropping into the main sensor. But the ultra wide is a bit disappointing because it just is cropping in. It is not using any lens switch when I zoom into the ultra wide angle lens. So sometimes if you take a photo like the 108 megapixel, it can take a second not to only take the shot but also to load the image. Let's go quickly through the camera application of MIUI or the Redmi Note 10 Pro. So I have here my usual setup of little gadgets that I want to photograph and show you how this works. So we have the normal photo mode, and if I want to take a snap, you can see it is pretty quickly in taking the snap even in darker situations. I can click to focus. It will also change the white balance, and the brightness of the image itself, and you can take a snap. You have an AI mode that you can turn off and on, and when it's on, it boosts a little bit the colors and makes it a little bit better looking. Here's some other options here, just like for example different filters that you can turn on, and you can switch to vivid, gold, lime, and so on. Various different filters. You have HDR that you can turn on or off, and automatically is the default. Then you have the Google Lens here, and you have the flash, of course, that you can turn on, and you have some other settings here, just like setting the format, the aspect ratio, and if you want to have a timer, if you want to have grid lines, if you want to go to settings, movie frame option, which will give you like the 21:9 kind of movie frame. You can go into super macro mode, and I didn't show you super macro mode photo, so let's do this here. The super macro mode allows you to get very close to your objects, very close, as you can see here, even closer if I want to. This is the maximum we can go. It has autofocus as well, and it's pretty good. Let's take a snap, and I can show you the snap as well. It's pretty awesome, this super macro mode. It's 5 megapixels, so it is not as bad as all the other cheap macro cameras that you usually get. We have a time shift or tilt shift function that gives you like this kind of look. I'm not sure if this is really wanted, a miniaturizing look that in this case might be interesting to see. And you can see the AI detected it as food, which is not really the case. With some other options here, we can turn off different tilt shift options, just like this miniaturizing effect or the round miniaturizing effect. I think the round one makes more sense on this object. Then we have timed burst as well, where we have 5-second burst that can be made. This is of course for moving subjects. And yeah, this is basically the photo options that you have. Then we have the normal portrait mode. So if you want to take portraits, you have the option to set the aperture up or down to get the effect that you want. And you have the more option where I showed you already the short video, the vlog mode. Dual video allows me to record myself here, and the other side might be handy as well. Sometimes I didn't try it out when I was doing my vlog. And we have the option to edit this menu, which is pretty cool. So I can add my own menu to the overview. So if I want to have like night mode directly in the overview, not under the more section, I can edit this here, which is pretty nice and handy. Otherwise, I have the 108 megapixel mode, documents, if I want to photograph documents, time lapse that I showed you as well. The clone mode is a nice little mode that allows me to take photos of myself in multiple positions, and it clones myself then. It also works as video as well, which is pretty nice. And the night mode, which allows me to take night shots, and I will show you some night shots as well. Then we have a panorama mode, which allows you to take some nice panoramas. Here's an example of a panorama. And we have a slow motion mode as well that allows you to take slow motions. And the long exposure mode, which is also available, which allows you to do some moving crowd, neon trails, oil painting, light painting, and all those little options that are possible with long exposures. These are basically all the extra modes, but you can have like some you have the option to download maybe some others or set some others up. I think there was one, I think the vlog one, I downloaded extra, which was not by default on the device itself. Then we have the video mode, where I can choose between the different modes. You can see here the color shift and the wide angle camera and the 2x zoom, which is basically no color shift at all. It's a crop into the sensor itself. So I can just start recording here. I have some options here as well, like setting up the resolution 720 1080p 30 frames per second, 1080p 60 frames per second, and 4K 30 frames per second, which doesn't have any stabilization though. And yeah, movie frame I can turn on, and I can also film in super macro mode. If I want to film something in super macro mode, this looks basically like this. And you can see I have the option to zoom in even further. In this case, it is not really sharp, is it? There we have it. So I have also the possibility to have this. I cannot zoom out though. So super macro mode filming, also pretty interesting, as I think. Then we have the Pro mode. The Pro mode allows me not to only take photos with a different white balance, a different f-stop number, which is pretty interesting in simulating the f-stop number though. I have the option to set my shutter speed, the ISO, exposure compensation, and I can switch the lens from wide to ultra wide, for example, or to macro mode if I want to, which is also pretty nice that I have the option to switch to macro mode here. I can go into video filming mode, so where I have like also the option to switch to the macro mode again. I have the option to set the aperture, which is pretty nice. Is it the aperture? Actually, it's not the aperture. I think it's focusing. So the F here is not the aperture, it's focusing. So I can set up the focusing up here the way I want it. Pretty nice. Shutter speed is again very important for filming in manual mode. So if you want to film something cinematic, set it to 150 or 160. ISO, exposure compensation, and again I can choose the lens and I can reset everything if I did something wrong. And of course I have the option also to change the metering mode here, spot metering, frame average metering, and yeah, here's the spot metering right now, or the center weighted, and I can set different color vibes or color profiles as well here. And of course I have the option to film 720p 30 frames per second, 1080p 30, and so on. The same options here, but with another extra option like the log option, so I can film in log, which is pretty nice if I want to edit it later on. It doesn't make sense for 8-bit log so much, I would say, but still it is there. And also have focus peaking, which is a professional thing. So if I go here and when I change focus, you can see we get this focusing, this red outline that shows me what is in focus. Pretty handy, especially if you want to do some cinematic shots. So turn this on in Pro mode, and the same goes for the option to focus verification. So if you focus on something, you get a nice verification. Is it focus verification or is it exposure verification? I think it's exposure verification, which has zebras turned on. What I don't like is the option that I can only have either zebras for right exposure or the focus peaking. So it would be nice if I have the option to turn both on, because I like to have both on. So pretty professional settings here in the Xiaomi camera application. I really like that. If you go to settings now, we have some other options here as well. So we have the option to allow tagging in videos. Image stabilization is turned on. We can have a histogram if you like to. We have live in-ear monitoring, which is also in professional mode. If you have the headphones inside, you can listen to your audio, which is also pretty nice. We can set the video encoder to H.265 if we want to. We can have the option for the volume buttons to act as a shutter button, also pretty handy. And we have some other options here, like the customization options for the feature layout, where I have again the option to put everything in this little slider that I want to. The camera modes I can set up here, like I want to have a more panel or a more tab, and I have the option to change the colors as well here if I want to change colors here for the highlight and so on. So pretty much customization possibilities here. Save the location, and having a shutter sound is also possible here. Save the previous mode, so that every time I open up the camera it is going into this mode. Is also very handy, especially if you have set up some custom settings, and the professional mode for video, for example. And we have anti-bending features here, is 50 Hz. We can set to auto or off. And this is basically everything in the camera settings. I like this camera pretty much because it gives me the option of professional camera shooting even with this mid-range device, and the Pro mode for video is really top notch. And Huawei and Sony should take a look at this camera app, which is pretty awesome in terms of the Pro mode. So what do you think about the Redmi Note 10 Pro? Is it a good device? Is it good for video? Is it good in terms of features? Is the main camera good enough without the ability to zoom in, which is I think a big issue for this device? How is the ultra wide angle? I think, my personal opinion, the main camera sensor is really top notch. It is the best that you can get in a mid-range currently. It is not maybe like the premium high quality that you can get from today's kind of smartphones, but it is last year's premium kind of sensor. So you get premium kind of photos, one of the best photos in a mid-ranger currently. The ultra wide angle is nothing spectacular or special. You have a bit of better dynamic range than I would have expected with the ultra wide angle, but in general I think it is a typical mid-range device. But when you have in mind that this device only costs around 250 to 280 euros, it is very good what you get for your money. It is the bang for the buck that it's like unimaginable 1 year ago, where we had also good mid-range devices, but they started in this 300 to 350 to 380 kind of price range. So I'm pretty impressed with the Redmi Note 10 Pro, and I could imagine using this for vlogging, for example, like I'm doing right now, because it has the ability to directly record audio, and the camera sensor, the main at least, is wonderfully for this, and even the ultra wide has such a wide field of view that it might be handy sometimes. In general, I'm very impressed with the Redmi Note 10 Pro device. And what do you think? Should I take some more shots? Do you want more camera samples? Do you want a comparison with, for example, my Sony Xperia 1 Mark II? Or do you want a camera comparison with the Mate 30 Pro, which is a flagship device from over a year ago? Just write it down in the comment section. What do you think about the Redmi Note 10 Pro, and what do you want me to test with the cameras of the Redmi Note 10 Pro? That's everything for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Like, subscribe, and write down in the comment section. And until the next time, bye.